Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Hope you all had a good weekend. Didn't do a great deal personally. Do you want to stop very quickly while people are arriving, just to say a few words about our friend Garvin over at Mostly Diggers, who kind of fell off the planet a bit, bizarrely. Excuse me a second. I'm just trying to sort something out. I'm hoping I can sort this out. I'm coming through the wrong way in Instagram, so bear with me a second. I'm just going to take myself out of that. And I'm going to redo it. But just talk amongst yourselves. I'll be with you in just a moment because something's gone horribly wrong there. Yeah, Garvin. There was a bit of concern over our friend Garvin over the weekend because he had literally just fallen off the planet. I thought I had a telephone number for him. I didn't. Eventually found him via email. Had an email exchange with him some time back, and yes, he basically, it is a voluntary thing. He has decided that enough is enough with social media. So apparently, just after Christmas, he had taken himself off TikTok, and he has since taken himself off Instagram as well, and YouTube as well. And I kind of understand it. I am still trying to get Instagram back up and running, by the way. Let's have a look. Yeah, that should do it, I think. Let's have a look. I don't know if it's still doing its thing. No, it doesn't seem to be working. I'll ignore that for the time being. So yes, his reasons for it were quite simply that it was just so bloody demanding, and it is. It's fine for me because I do this for a living. He doesn't. He's got a full-time job, and it basically doesn't suit. And one of the things I think people overlook with this, as I say, I've got a full-time job. I'm sat here day in, day out doing this because I've got nothing better to do. But he drives a digger, he fixes diggers and stuff like that. So that's what he does. And it's hard. Give you an idea. Sorry, Instagram is still playing silly buggers. Give you an idea. When Fred and I mean, for ConExpo, for example, we'll probably be filming 7-8 hours a day. That 7 or 8 hours a day that we filmed will be somewhere between 3 and 4 days to turn 7 or 8 hours of film into actual footage. By the time you've gone through, edited it, color corrected it, chopped it up into it's hard work. It is hard work. And I got the impression from our friend Garv was he basically just felt like he was beholden to originally TikTok and then Instagram as well. And I'm going to say this from Steve. Steve said, I heard he has not deleted all his socials, just switched them off. His words to me basically in the email were that he had he said the various platforms offer what he referred to as like a hibernation, so you can basically go into hibernation, and he reckons he's gone. It just literally upped and gone. So yeah, it's I think it's a shame because he had a very good channel. He was doing some very good stuff. He had a great Baumer. You know, he did some really good stuff at Baumer and, you know, millions of views. But I think when it becomes so demanding, you kind of have to make a decision. And there is, I'm sure Steve will back me up on this. There's no winning. You can't win with social media. If you have a post that goes viral and gets you millions of views, rather than being satisfied with that, there is a temptation to think, well, I've got 2 million views on that. Maybe I can get 2.5 million with the next one. Or the other way around is I've got a video that I believe is going to go it's going to be, you know, widely acclaimed, and it gets 55 views. So you then go into the loop of, well, I only got 55 views. What have I done wrong? What do I do next to fix it? How do I get my next viral exposure? it is a demanding mistress. And I've got to say, I'm going to miss him being around because he does a very good job. But I don't blame him at all. As I say, it's different for me because I've got fuck all better to do. Mark Whiting is here. I've already said good morning to Gary, I think. He was here just before we got here. Yeah, Gary says, what's the new icon all about? Yeah, playing around, basically. I don't know how clearly you can see it. It's basically, it says Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, which I think you're all familiar with. I was playing around with some design stuff over the weekend, and I've got that in that form. I've also got it as it kind of animates and stuff like that. I just thought it'd be quite a laugh. In actual fact, I mean, I've got to get it upscaled. I did actually wonder about putting something similar to that on a T-shirt. Not the whole, I don't want my name on it, and I don't want the Walrus of Demolition, but the idea of actually having just a walrus in a hard hat, one of those, if you know, you know. So now, watch this space. Steve Williamson is here. Already mentioned Steve, but good morning, Steve. Great to have you back amongst us. What is the countdown now? It's about 3 weeks now, isn't it? Just under. Jim is here. Morning, Pips. Mick Dalton is here as well. I saw something this morning, Mick, that might have interested you. Some project that's just been given the go-ahead up in your part of the world. I think it was on Construction Inquirer this morning, up in Wakefield. Congratulations, Jim, on your new purchase. Yes. He's been out buying iron. I'll leave him to tell you exactly what it is that he's purchased. But yes, Jim has got himself a project. Jim saying, real shame about Garv. Yeah, I agree. Going to miss seeing him over on Instagram, although with Instagram playing up, I've switched it off this morning. But I am going to miss seeing him over there. And also, just very quickly, and Garv, if you are watching this, and I do mean this with the utmost respect, he always had a slightly different take on all of this. I remember when Steve was originally approached by Volvo. He can bore you with the details, but Volvo invited him up to Eskilstuna. He didn't see the email and therefore missed out. But then about a year later, they invited him again and he went. And Steve took the opportunity or took the attitude that, wow, global manufacturer like Volvo want me to go to their place. How fantastic is that? I remember when Gary was approached to do some demonstration driving with steel wrist. Obviously, he's a steel wrist lover, and it was, wow, look, I've got an opportunity to work with the company that I love and admire. I had a couple of fairly detailed conversations with our friend Garvin, where he'd been approached, and he took a lot more kind of skeptical approach. It was almost like, they've approached me. What are they after? What's this all about? I think he was kind of one step removed from it all. So, yeah, there we are. Andy Thornton is here. Chris Ford is here as well. Good morning. Steve says, huge shot, but not really with the way it's all going. ConExpo now doing the influencer shite again. Yeah. And listen, I do wonder about all of that. They're actually hosting over at ConExpo some influencer meetings. Who's going to attend that? Listen, I can understand the logistical reasons from ConExpo's point of view to, if you invite an influencer to be part of a panel or something like that, then that influencer is going to talk about the fact that they're part of your panel, and that gives you exposure. But if you've traveled to Las Vegas, even if you are based in the States, even if you're based in Texas or something like that, next door to Nevada, and you've traveled to the show, and there it is, there is the mecca of construction equipment out there in the, it's demonstrating, it's on display. Are you going to give up an hour of your time amidst all of that iron to go and listen to somebody babble on about YouTube or Instagram? Maybe I'm different. Maybe because I move in those circles, the last thing I want to do is listen to somebody telling me how to do the thing that I already do. But if you're in the digger business, are you really going to go all the way to Las Vegas to listen to some person twaddle on about, yes, viral reach and market penetration? Let's have a look. Dan, the man, is here. Good morning, guys. Looking good, Mark. Thank you very much indeed. What do we got here? Jim. Promise. We will get show underway in a moment. Thanks, Gary. Nice to have a new toy every now and then. Just need to source a blade and a cab for now. You're putting a cab on, are you? Yeah, big old softy. Let's have a look. Andy says, morning, Dan. He's rocking the grey. I am rocking the grey today. There was no planning. Kind of goes with the beard now, I suppose. Ken Hatcher. Ken, you are also on the Las Vegas countdown as well. Gary Muirhead says, there's too many keyboard warriors out wanting to put you down. Yeah. I mean, I as I say, I mean, I had a long email back from Garvin. I didn't get the impression he'd got any grief or jip over it. I think it was literally a case of this has become too demanding. I don't actually enjoy it now. And listen, I understand. My Instagram, we used to post when we were trying to get the numbers up on our viewership. We used to post 3 times a day, 365 days a year. By and large, outside of exhibitions, by and large now, I post my morning monologue and I post my live show. And I'm not even doing that this morning. So, yeah. Steve says, I just post what and when I want now. I'm doing because I love it, not because of the likes. I think that's the separation. I think that's the important separation. I think when you actually look like, or when you're actually pursuing fame and fortune, it becomes all consuming. It looks like the one eye. What? Not a clue. Gaz Evans. Gaz, good morning. Gaz, how are you doing, my old mate? Gaz, the model maker, and supplier of fine models to the gentry and others. Morning, Gaz. Good to see you here. Are you doing ConExpo? Do you do ConExpo? Dan saying morning to all of you plant porn addicts. Yeah, it was great content he was posting. Yeah. I mean this in the nicest possible way. I actually thought that Garvin's output was what Nick Drew's output should have been. And listen, I love what Nick does and everything else, but I think Garvin kind of took it a step on. As a digger driver, somebody that fixes and operates diggers, and then goes and travels and sees the diggers, and I just think he had that extra thing. I thought his reviews are great, pure, honest, and different perspective. That's exactly it. I mean, I would put Garvin alongside Ollie Guns, who open and honest. Even if he's paid cold hard cash for a piece of equipment, and it turns out it's not as good as he thought it was, he'll say as much. I'm an influencer. I'll go. Well, I'll keep you in mind, Ken. Heard Lama got slated for the meet and greets. I'm not even going to cover it up. I remember Tristan Mays saying that to me. He kind of dangled a carrot. He said to me, next Hillhead, you should host a meet and greet. Let people come and meet you, and shake your hand and get selfies and stuff and whatever. And I was about to say, "Are you mental?" And he laughed and he went, "How wanky is that?" all you do is just do, I mean, I'm doing this show now. At what point do I think, yes, I shall host an event and people will give up their walk around Hillhead looking at all the sexy equipment to go and hang out with this guy? The hell? Yeah, I don't think that's the thing at all. Let's have a look. Carled Farming says, good morning, car tech expert. Not entirely sure what that's all about. Jim says, I know I'm only playing it, but I don't get the pressure of likes or views. I just put things on that I find interesting. The longer you can hold that, Jim, the better. But it's like crack. You occasionally, I mean, I remember we were sat, it wasn't the last Baumer, I think it was a Baumer before. And I was sat in an Airbnb, me, Fred, Peter Haddock, and Nick Drew. And for reasons that I can't actually remember, I was picking up about 1,000 new followers on Instagram an hour. I mean, it was mental. I mean, literally every time I picked up my phone, Jesus, I've got another 500 here, you know. So the following day, you find yourself running around. Oh, you know what were they like? What were they like? And so, yeah, infuriating these influencers that actually don't have a clue. Yeah, I unfortunately I do think they are unrepresentative. Funnily enough, I promise I will start the show in a moment. I've just been writing an article about social value. One of the things that companies or clients and main contractors use now to decide who they're going to use for work is a measure of social value. You know, will you employ local people? Will you sign a piece of paper that says you won't use slave labor? Will you come and paint a fence at the local school and all that sort of stuff? And rather than actually making construction more socially valuable, what it's done, it's encouraged people to just tell better stories. For example, I mean, I've seen social value paperwork that basically says we guarantee that we will pay our workers at least a minimum wage. Well, you're legally required to do that. Don't make out that that's some kind of huge benefit to the world. You're supposed to do that anyway. They are good at telling stories. The major demolition companies, for example, have become very good at telling stories, and I do think that's where the influencer thing has become skewed. You know, if you happen to tell a good story, or more specifically, in some instances, if you happen to look quite good in a pair of cycling shorts, no name, no pack drill, you will get ahead. Does that actually mean that you are an expert in your field? My guess is it probably doesn't. Excuse me 1 second. There's somebody knocking at the door. Bear with me. My humble apologies. That never happens, but I'm the only one here today. Everybody else is out and about, so yeah, I had to answer the door. My apologies for that. Let's have a look. Where are we? Jim says it either gets views or not. I suppose it's my tism that makes me not sweat it. Yeah, it's a harder one. Like when you have the worst combination of all, social media wise, is when you have a very, very successful piece of content, whether it's a photograph or a video, and then you have one that is not as successful, because you then maybe you wouldn't with your autism, but I think some people are then, what did I do with the first one that I didn't do with the second? What can I do to improve the second one to make it better, as good as the first one? And it becomes like this feedback loop. Terrible. Mick says, yes, regeneration of Wakefield City Centre in early planning stages. Other than the cathedral, Wakefield blighted by shuttered premises, vagrants and drug users. Roll on the plans for demolition. Ah, yes. Sounds like Slough, doesn't it? I can't remember the words of the Slough poem, but there is one. Let's have a look. Khaled Farmi says, car tech expert, this company take care of every tool for heavy equipment. Do you? I'll have a look at you after I've done the show. Steve says, Ken, you going to ConExpo? He is, and I can tell you, I hope this doesn't mean that he will have a group of fans waiting in reception, but he's staying at the Rio. Incidentally, Steve, where are you staying this time? We're back in the Luxor. Let us know. Yep, no, we've answered that. If Gar is up for it, would you do an evening interview with him, Mark? Possibly. I mean, I'll ask the question. I'm more than happy to answer the question. But as I say, even that, he was very much a behind the scenes kind of guy. I remember meeting up with him at a Balmer. I was driving an XCMG electric excavator at the time, and he was filming me. And I got off, and we were having a chat. And I said, you jump in, and I'll film you. And he went, oh, no. That's not me at all. Yeah. Let's have a look. His content was always interactive. Yeah. Do you ever hear from Nick or Mr. Haddock now? I don't. I'd hate to think that it was down to me. I don't think it is. Very quickly, because we are 21 minutes in and I've done absolutely nothing, but you will recall, if you've been here for any length of time, we had what we referred to internally as the construction collective, because we all went into a big black hole coming back from ConExpo, funnily enough, in March 2020. We'd been there all at our own expense, spent a fortune to gather information and video and photographs, and came back, and all of us were just, well, what now? What do we do now? And I do think we, to a large degree, we kind of huddled together for warmth. We kind of, I was on Peter's podcast, Peter was on mine. We had evening shows with the three of us, and so on down the line. But then once COVID was over and done with, we kind of went off and did our own thing. I know Nick, the last I heard, Nick was actually toying with the idea of going back to do some more, not full time, but doing more digger driving. I know Peter pops up on my LinkedIn every once in a while. Well, not every once in a while. He's on there almost constantly. But no, we're not. As far as I know, there's been no falling out. It's just, I think we all ended up, we huddled together and then just kind of drifted off. I still consider them mates. Next time I bump into them, I'm sure it'll be all cordial and everything else. But between times, I think we're all too busy doing our own thing, Gaz says, yes, we are at ConExpo. Range of models to display. We are on the remove stand. Fantastic stuff. I shall do my best to dive by and catch up with you. That's why I love this show. Well, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. I did a meet and greet with you at Hillhead. Yeah. But I didn't kind of set it up, did I? I mean, if I had taken a stand or taken over the pavilion and said, come one, come all, come meet the mighty Mark Antony, the walrus of demolition, there would be queues at the door. There would not. There really would not. Who is Tractors Plant Machinery? That is Jim Turner. Now he's a big old YouTuber. That is the name he goes by now. I get 500 to 600 views a day. Hey, listen, the one thing I will say, and I'm sure Steve is of this mind, you can. I mean, I've got videos that have done 40 plus million views, which I'm not bragging about because they were largely one-offs. But I'm sometimes disappointed. I produce a video and I think, well, that's going to go great guns, and it's seen by 500 people, and you think, 500 people. Imagine standing on the stage having to do that to 500 people in the room. Fucking terrifying. So 500 is nothing to be sniffed at all with that. I think I should have a show on issues and chats about the industry, say a Friday. Yeah, why not? Why not? Listen, now that Steve's here, it's 24 minutes past. I promise the show will start at past. I promise. The biggest mistake that I made, and it is me, I can't blame anyone else. The biggest mistake I made with all of this was this would have worked so much better as a collective. Not necessarily with Nick and Peter, although they would have been very, very good candidates for it. But I watch a lot of content. I used to watch quite a few of the American comedians, and somebody like a guy called Theo Von would go on to a podcast with Tom Segura. Tom Segura would go on to Andrew Schultz's podcast. Andrew Schultz would go on to, and there's kind of so you end up getting lots and lots of content featuring the same people, but they've all got their own opinions. And imagine if I'd had the foresight to come up with this show format and the social media to go with it, but on, let's say, a Wednesday night, I basically hand over the reins to Steve Williamson, and then on a Friday night I hand over the reins to Dan Cullen, and on a Saturday afternoon Gary Muirhead hosts the show. It would have made so much more sense, and I didn't see it until it was too late to do anything about it. Knock at the door, is that the first of this show? No, it's not. It has happened once or twice before, but there's normally somebody in the house, but today there isn't. You can't leave the show? Well, apparently, yes, I can. I promise not to do it again. Jamie's here as well. Morning, Jamie. How are you doing, my friend? Good to see you here. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but Jamie, your post the other day about your kiddie there. I tip my hat to you, mate. Jamie is. I'll leave him to tell you about it, or go to his LinkedIn and have a look at it. But he has taken the decision to put family first above job, taking a bit of a step back. We were talking last night, and I've only got 4 minutes before I must start the show. I promised. We were talking in this house last night about who we consider to be manly men in the world in general. I don't even know how we got on the subject, but I think that the term manly has kind of changed. You think back to, the manly men of old, the Sean Connerys and the John Waynes and the Clint Eastwoods of this world. Yeah, a huge fan of at least two of those, but there was always kind of an underlying toxicity to their manliness. I mean, Sean Connery, for example. My middle name is Sean because of Sean Connery, but Sean Connery is on public record. If a woman steps out of line, give her a slap. I can't do that anymore. I can't allow that to slide. One of the things when we were talking about being a man in the modern world, one of the things that in my mind does that is be roughy-tufty, be manly, a bit of banter with the lads, out on the sauce and everything else, but you go home and you kiss your kids goodnight. Jamie, I think you qualify, mate. Not that you care, but my wife is coming midweek, staying another week after the show. Fantastic stuff. But my wife will be there the entire duration, probably spending all my money on the slot machines. Saturday, Virgin PM. That's when you're flying, is it? We're flying out on the Sunday. At that time, funnily enough, fancy Jehovah's Witnesses knocking at your door mid-show. Trust me, I'd have been back a whole lot sooner. It was a package I was taking. Jim says, I feel lucky for this. I'm a very confident person. Never presume anyone wants to talk to me or would care what I think or have to say. So popularity doesn't register. Same with me as with normal folk. I am still quite surprised that people turn up for this. Genuinely. I mean, I consider a bunch of you guys as mates now. We don't meet up very often, but I do consider you as mates. But the fact that I am just a journalist, I'm not a digger person. I'm just a journalist, and I turn up 5 days a week, and people turn up to listen to me twaddle on. Yeah, absolutely. Jim's laughing at being a big old YouTuber. You could have been a big old something far worse. There's not many manly men now, all a bit womanly now. And I don't actually have a major problem with that. I don't, if you're that way inclined, I don't consider myself to be overly manly. Much prefer the company of women than men generally. In fact, groups of men make me quite uncomfortable. The idea of going down the pub with a big group of men, or going to something like rugby, where you must drink a lot and be shouty. And no, count me out of that. I want no part of that. Peter McKenna is here as well. Good morning, Peter. And it's going to be a wife's expo. My wife will not, I promise you, will not see a single digger the entire time we're there. She'll be off around the shops. Peter says, some tit behind a desk whining and moaning about work life. This guy, yeah. Right, okay, hang on a minute. To be honest, I met a lot of what I call good mates, friends here, thanks to your show, Mark. Fantastic. Well, listen, final thing, I've got 15 seconds. The concern over Garvin's disappearance over the weekend does you all proud. If we've achieved nothing else with this show, we've achieved that. Enough. Let me crack on with this. It's Monday, the 9th of February. We've been talking so long, it could be almost Tuesday, but it is Monday, the 9th of February. I'm going to tidy up my screen, get rid of that for now, because we don't need that anymore, because I'm about to tell you. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the walrus of demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming, the authentic voice of the demolition industry. In today's show, we're preparing for takeoff with the mighty Hitachi. We're going to take a spin with the Mecalac Revotruck, how technology is putting men back to work. Stick around if you possibly can for that, because I do think it's a very good film. Takes a different view. I think we often look at remote control, autonomy, and automation as kind of destroying jobs. This will give you a different take on it. And we are back on the ConExpo trail as our voyage to Vegas continues. Plus, in today's morning monologue, surviving on scraps, an allegory for our time. I'll explain it all when we get there. But first of all, let's have... Peter says, we all have one thing in common, humility. It's quite a valuable thing, that, isn't it? I would put that up with kindness, transparency, loyalty, honesty. Yeah, all key values, I would say. I saw a good machine on YouTube, Liebherr track dumper. Where did you see that? I may have to go and have a look for that. Let's crack on. Let's crack on with a bit of Caterpillar, and then we're going to take flight with Hitachi. I am going to do the Hitachi thing in just a moment, but I am going to very quickly go over to something that's just literally, I've not read this at all, so bear with me a second. This has just landed on my desk while that was going on. This is from, where is this from? Specification Online, whoever the hell Specification Online are, and it reads as follows: annual construction material prices have risen or more than doubled in 20 years. Each month, the Department of Business and Trade, that's DBT, publishes construction material price indices categorized under all work, new housing, other new work, and blah, 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 blah. Publication of DBT's construction materials prices index resumed in January 2026 after a pause between February 2025. Oh, bollocks. Based on the annual average, construction material prices for all work in 2025 were more than double what they were 2 decades ago in 2005. Yeah, welcome to the modern world of construction, where prices double in 20 years. Anyway, let's not bother ourselves with that. Let's bother ourselves instead with a bit of Hitachi action.
Right now, we're in the Matsu Valley, sitting on a runway project with Alaska Construction and Paving.
Always heard that phrase, blind ambition, you know. I wanted to start my own company, and I thought I knew everything, you know, and then I soon learned I didn't know anything. Kind of went from there, you know. Our advantage is, at least we feel, we have our own gravel pit, we have our own asphalt plant, our own crushers and screeners and our own trucks and all of that. So it's just kind of a natural thing for us to do developments like this. It's an air park. It's designed for mostly pilots in mind, where they can land on the runway and taxi right up to their home on every lot. The runway is going to be 2,400 feet long. We're anticipating that if it got really busy around here, it's long enough you could have some people coming in and some people going out at the same time. It's turning out pretty well, actually. I like to stay involved, and I come out and run equipment, and I operate the Hitachi machines practically every day. It's good therapy for me. We use them all year round, like we do our clearing, like for this subdivision here, we do in the wintertime when the ground's still frozen. Our downtime was really minimal. Fuel is a big thing to us, and we actually run these machines most of the time on eco mode. And it's amazing how even in a full day, a lot of times we'll get 3 and 4 days on a tank of fuel. We just like the way they handle, you know. I mean, we do a lot of intricate, touchy work and pipe work and stuff, and they're really good for that. You know, they aren't jerky, they're smooth, and they're just a good all-around machine, really. Got the stereo going, and I mean, they're pretty modern now. They got all the, like these have 2 or 3 cameras on them and all kinds of stuff, you know.
Landcross Connect is Hitachi's telematics system, and a huge cost benefit for the customers. It gives the customer access on their phone or on their computer, availability to see where their equipment is at all times, availability to get their parts manuals accessible through their phone or their computer. The customers respond the most to the productivity reports. They can tell how much fuel they burned, at what site they were on when they burned that much fuel to forecast their jobs. So take Jerry Harmon, for example, on this site. He's building the same lots over and over again, from the pioneering side to the foundation to the finished grade. If he builds 3 of them, he could take the average of those 3 and forecast and be able to tell how much fuel he's going to burn on the next 40 lots and be able to bid that into his job, which gives them a huge efficiency record and the ability to recoup all their costs.
So we've had a lot of opportunity with this gentleman over the years, and it's been shall I say at the least, fruitful for both of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've had, several decades of orange machines.
Yeah.
That dug a lot of dirt in this country.
I personally don't know why everybody doesn't like this kind of business, you know. I mean, you're contouring the ground and doing different things, and it's kind of cool, you know.
Doesn't get any better than this.
There you are, Hitachi. How deep was that fella's voice? Remember an interview with Elvis many, many years ago where he had a backup singer who was doing like the bass parts. And Elvis turned to him and said, I can't even think that low. Yeah, deep old voice. Going to go back to this. Mick Norton says, great guitar music in the background. Great emphasis on fuel burn as well. Dan saying, wow, that's cool. Nice countryside. And Dan saying, that's what I'd have. A quarry farm and rural area host demo days for manufacturers, have days for kids and adults to learn equipment before they go into construction jobs. Well, let's hope you win the lottery sometime soon then, Dan. And this very quickly from Gary says, have you heard or seen anything from Worthing Advertiser, or have they gone into retirement? I actually don't know. I was contacted fairly recently, a couple of weeks ago, by one of their former employees. With hindsight, I'm not even entirely sure why they contacted me, but they did. And they said, oh, have you seen it recently? And I said, not seen it recently. I've not seen it at all. It just exists in a completely different universe to me. I neither know nor care. I'm fairly sure they're still going, but I mean, in all the time I pop in and out of places, never once seen a copy of the magazine, which is kind of telling in itself. Dan says, I think that's what this industry needs, a place where you advertise an open day every week to build up their initiative to join the industry. Incidentally, one of the things that I realize this is a bit distant for you guys, but one of the things that Garvin did tell me about is in the middle of May this year, Eberhard, big, and I do mean massive Swiss construction equipment. Well, I mean, they're a construction company, but they've got a huge model collection, but they've also got a huge museum of their equipment as well. They've been a Caterpillar customer for as long as anyone can remember. And I think I'm fairly sure they were the first company in the world to use a D11 in a city. They actually did that, but they're hosting an open day, or 2 open days. It's a Saturday and a Sunday in just outside Zurich over in Switzerland, middle of May. Now, as I say, not exactly easy for people to get to, although I think if you get in early enough, we could probably pick up a cheap flight or 2. But yeah, Eberhard Open Day. It's going to be like a one company mini Hillhead, but there's going to be a lot of vintage plant there and so on. I'm looking at it very seriously. So if anybody else is planning to go, let me know, and maybe we could do a road trip or something. They're probably advertising on Mars now. Who knows? Posted that dumper on the group. I did see that come through, Peter. Thank you very much indeed for that. I'll have a look at that in just a moment. Does ConExpo have a hands-on section where you can actually try the equipment, or is it not possible? No, there are a few stands and demo areas. They're a bit more what's the word? Laissez-faire, I would say. Over here, I mean, you know what Plant Works is like, you know what Hillhead is like. You know, you used to be able to go to SED, show you somebody your card, and they'd let you have a play for 10 minutes. We don't do that anymore. In the States, still not. It's not impossible. You can do it. They're a bit selective, and you know, but there is a little bit of hands-on going on. Not as much as I would like. And listen, I'm fully cognizant of health and safety and the need to protect the public and everything else. But how else do you inspire? How else, you know, bearing in mind, ConExpo, like Bauma, like Intermat, like Samota, like Plantworks, like Hillhead, they are all a shop window. Would you go into a car dealership and say, that looks a nice car, I'll take it? Or would you like a test drive? Just saying. Peter McKenna saying, blue pills? Eberhard. Yes, Eberhard, not Everhard. Just so you know. Right. Cracking on. Let's have a bit of this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Now, I've got to be honest, there are a bunch of companies that make dumpers with the rotating cab thing. And I mean, I'm a fan of the concept. I really am. Personally, I think this one's the pick of the bunch. Hang on a minute, it's all moving too quickly. There we are. This is Mick Norton. Is there a post-ConExpo list of manufacturers' actual sales that one can view? Not that I'm aware of. I know back in the day, when I was but a junior reporter at SED, we used to go around on the last day of SED, the Thursday, literally sort of running from stand to stand. Have you sold anything off the stand? What have you sold? But it was always a little bit queer. That to get that bit of publicity, you had people. I mean, I remember HE Services were very good at this. The hire company down in Kent that run Diggerland. They were very good at. They'd already placed an order with JCB for 20 excavators or 50 backhoe loaders or whatever it might be, but they would arrive at SED and do the handshake, and therefore it became an SED sale, which was always a little bit questionable. Doesn't happen so much anymore. Peter says Nigel's the one to talk about those. Now he finally has a ticket for one. Does he? Is there a specific ticket for a rotating cab? I probably should know that, but I don't know that. I do like that, says Dad. Yeah, me too. Pete, no, this is Jim. Any kids and young folks that come to our place get offered to have a go on our kit, I see it as our duty. Might just be inspiring the next generation of plant ops. But don't forget, and I'm not trying to put you off, Jim, because, but don't forget that conversation we had, what was it, 18 months, 2 years ago, about the grandfather that had his kids on his farm, drove a tractor, neighbours spotted him, reported him, and he ended up being fined by the HSE. I'm calling BS on it, to be perfectly honest, but that's the way of the world. Or vintage kit enthusiast. Yeah, they could well be. As I say, Eberhard. I'll check the dates, but it's. I can probably do that now, actually. Bear with me a sec. Just need to get to the right place. Yes, it is taking place on the 16th and 17th of May, if anybody is interested. Chris says, reminds me of the Muir Hill dumpers of the 50s. I don't remember the Muir Hill dumpers of the 50s, but I certainly remember Muir Hill. It's apprenticeship week this week, apparently. Yes, well, Peter, thank you for the reminder, but as you well know, I've kind of ducked out of days because I don't actually believe in them. It's Women in Construction Week. What about the other 51 weeks of the year? It's Mental Health Awareness Day. What about the other 364 days? National Apprenticeship Week? Whatever. Back after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Yeah, I said this at the top of the show. Whenever we talk about technology, particularly anything to do with remote control, or more specifically autonomy, there is the natural belief that it will cost jobs. Digger drivers will be parked up and won't be able to work anymore. But there are ways that technology can actually create jobs and bring people back into work. Enjoy this.
This is a $325,000 grant to empower disabled veterans through remote-controlled construction technology like we see on this loader behind us. We have a debt of gratitude, and we can never really fully repay this debt.
I served the United States in the Army. I was an officer and spent 16 months in Iraq. I had over 20 soldiers receive the Purple Heart in my company. I lost 2 young men that gave their lives in that fight. I lost 2 more to suicide upon their return, and a half dozen of these young men have life-altering injuries. And so for me personally, it was important to figure out how we can find career opportunities to make it possible to access them as young people and veterans across the country.
There's not a lot of jobs which are accessible to put the veterans back to work. The vision was that we wanted to build technology that would fundamentally improve people's lives. The operator can now no longer have to sit inside the machine, but sit behind a comfortable control station in an office-like environment. So this opens up the workforce significantly. I believe technology is the ultimate equalizer, and I think this is the prime example of how technology here is helping make these jobs more accessible.
I've spent some time on a loader, but doing it virtually, the feel was very intuitive. And this is why this technology is so important. We can get people that may be sitting on the sidelines back into the workforce.
I think this is a true testament, this project, to public-private partnerships in Montana.
So if you can open up the labor pool to folks that can't actually be on a site, then you can facilitate workers who are in remote locations working for somewhere that may not have the required labor to actually operate machines. So it expands the labor pool for our customers.
project like this gives us hope that a veteran who may not be able to do all the jobs that are possible, they can find fulfilling, meaningful work and a great career right here in Montana.
Innovations like this allow particularly our veterans to enter into jobs that are productive, worthwhile, and bring dignity back to their lives.
We need employees. This looked like a good way to employ and train disabled vets and so forth in an application like we have here in these pits. It just looked like it was a great new technology. We think this technology is the future, and we thought we might as well embrace it now.
I encourage any disabled veterans out there who are looking for a job opportunity to apply. This is good work. It's important work. It's noble work. Thank you to John Deere and Teleo for your work to make this capability possible, and to all our partners here today who are making this come alive.
I thought that was pretty inspiring, actually. Going to go over to the chat. Dan saying, now that's great. Why don't we do that here? What was that, £250,000 investment? Can you see anyone doing that? Personally, I can't. Welcome to the future, says Andy. Yeah, and a more positive future as well. I do think that we do tend to focus on the potential for job losses, but there is a potential for job creation there. And if that means a few veterans, but also disabled people, you imagine all the people that have been, you remember we used to have a bloke here who became a pain in the arse, who was struggling a bit with stuff, Footy, do you remember him? Rather than having to get in and out of a cab with his stepladder, go and sit in an office like that, carry on. Gary says, that reminds me of the cab conversion that Marco Lorini did for an operator in a wheelchair to continue with what he loves doing. Yeah, there's been a few of those. Could be more. I do think there should be more. Mick Norton says, here in Yorkshire, Kiernan Honeyman of K&H Plant Training does exemplary work helping UK veterans into construction. I'm very, very critical of the NFDC, but they've done some work in that area as well. I know Adrian McLean up at Armac has brought some guys out of the forces and put them into work in demolition as well. There is work going out there, but again, it's little silos of stuff going on, whereas rather than your K&H plant doing a thing and Armac doing a thing and the NFDC doing a thing, if you could combine that so that we could create that. And don't forget, very quickly, I've even got a banner for this. I will remind you of this very quickly. Let me take that comment off the screen so you can see it clearly. There you are. Wednesday, the 18th of February. We're going to be going live with Simulator Pioneers, CM Labs. They do the kind of technology that you just watched. If you find that interesting, please join us. Chris Ford says, how boring. Imagine sat at a desk all day, getting eye strain. Can't see the point of sitting in an office when you could be doing the real thing. Well, I think that would be the preference. But if you are ex-forces, disabled, possibly missing a limb or two, it's a bit of a better alternative, I would say. And personally, I quite like the idea of that. If I were going to be operating a machine, I think that's the way I prefer to do it. You imagine, a bank of those simulators in a place somewhere, you and your mates, rather than working in complete isolation, worrying about your mental health, worrying about the bills, worrying about your wife, worrying about the kids, you're all sat in a bank together and you can be talking while you're doing it. I think that would be better for all concerned. Just me. Final thing of the day, let's do a bit of ConExpo. Yeah, ConExpo fast approaching. This is some of what's going on.
Construction is changing fast. The groundbreaker stage shows you what's next. New for 2026, the Groundbreaker Stage is a keynote platform spotlighting the ideas, technologies, and leaders shaping what's next in construction. Every 3 years, nearly 140,000 construction leaders come together to talk about the challenges and opportunities impacting a more than $2 trillion industry. On the Groundbreaker Stage, those conversations come to life, covering how artificial intelligence, connected systems, sustainability, and advanced technologies are changing the way job sites operate. You'll hear directly from leaders at some of the most influential companies in construction, including Caterpillar, Autodesk, AWS, and John Deere, along with other innovators shaping the industry. These aren't abstract ideas or far-off concepts. They're real solutions and focuses on how it's already being applied on job sites around the world. Best of all, the Groundbreaker Stage is open to all ConExpo ConAg attendees. No additional registration required. Join us in Las Vegas, March 3rd through 7th, and experience the ideas shaping the next era of construction, live on the Groundbreaker Stage.
Speaking of ConExpo, we were talking last week about how expensive it is to actually get into ConExpo. There is a way around it, not a way completely around it, but if you're watching this show and you would like a discount on getting in, have a look at Demolition News today. You'll see the video of today's show, and below it, there's an MB Crusher advert. Click that advert and arrange a meeting with MB Crusher, and they will give you a discount. I think it's about 40% discount off your ticket to get in. So if you are doing it on a budget and you don't want to pay full price, do that. That will get you in. Just so you know. That's about it for the main part of this morning show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I hope to see you again very soon. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I shall return immediately after this. Very quickly before I start, when I sat down to write this over the weekend, I set out to write an allegory. Without save you looking it up, an allegory is basically a story that appears to be about one thing, but is actually about another. When I'd written it, I actually thought, well, that's virtually every morning monologue I do. But this is an allegorical tale. You'll figure it out as you go along. The Great Hall stands as a magnificent testament to ancient stone and heavy timber. High above, the vaulted ceiling is lost in a persistent haze of smoke, where heavy iron chandeliers hold flickering tallow candles that cast dancing amber shadows across the walls. At the very heart of this cavernous space sits a table of such gargantuan proportions that it appears to be carved from the very foundations of this fortress itself. This massive oak trestle groans and creaks audibly under the staggering weight of the evening's bounty. It's a landscape of culinary excess. A roasted boar's head garnished with rosemary and bay leaves takes pride of place at the head of the board. Beside it lie platters of venison haunch dripping with rich dark gravy, accompanied by gold-encrusted pies that release thick clouds of savoury steam when pierced. Piles of artisanal bread sit alongside wheels of pungent aged cheese and bowls of honeyed delicacies. Glistening fruits, including poached pears and dried figs, are tucked between silver chargers heaped with spiced lampreys. Crystal decanters and heavy pewter flagons overflow with deep crimson wine and frothing golden ale, their sweet and yeasty scents mingling with the heavy aroma of roasting fat. The air is thick with the heavy perfume of cloves, cinnamon, and burnt wood. Every inch of the dark wood is obscured by this mountain of sustenance. Sat at the table, their faces rendered grotesque by the dancing shadows, are a dozen hugely obese men, each slathering over the repast laid before them. These men don't produce the food, they don't till the earth, they don't slaughter the beasts. Their expertise lies purely in the arrangement of the meal. And when the feast begins, it's a spectacle of gluttony. These men don't nibble. They carve out enormous proportions, far more than they could ever hope to digest. They're insatiable, rapacious. They consume with a terrifying intensity and at a terrifying rate. Their movements scarily rapid, and their hands a blur as they cram more and more into their gaping mouths. Their cheeks flush with the heat of the wine, and their eyes glaze with the sheer weight of their intake. And just out of reach of the chandelier's glow crouch the scavengers, their faces gaunt and their bellies empty. These are the men and women who brought the food to the table. They're the ones who kept the fires burning, but they're not permitted to sit. The scavengers are forced to watch those gathered at the table with a mixture of resentment and desperate hope. They wait for the trickle, the belief that the gluttony at the top will eventually overflow, providing sustenance for those below. But today, the trickle is a tradition that is no longer observed. Those sat at the table no longer leave leftovers. When a platter is pushed away, it's not passed down, it's discarded. By the time a carcass reaches the hands of the scavengers in the shadows, it's been stripped of every ounce of fat. The marrow's been sucked from the bone. All that remains are the gristle, the rinds, and the shards of crust that have fallen onto the carpet. For the scavengers, the fight over the crumbs is a battle for survival. For the greedy sat at the table, that fight is viewed as sport. The people at the table look down and tut at the lack of decorum among the poor, oblivious to the fact that they created the starvation that fuels the frenzy. There's a strange phenomenon that occurs as the feast nears its end. The great consumers, now bloated to the point of immobility, begin to complain about the service. They find fault with the temperature of the room or the speed with which the bones are cleared away. They become sluggish. They're so weighed down by the sheer volume of what they consumed that they can no longer see the floor, let alone the people crawling upon it. They demand more, even as they struggle to breathe. They take on more courses, not because they've got the capacity to finish them, but simply because their greed will not allow them to stop. They hoard the food until it rots on the plate, rather than letting a single morsel fall intentionally to the scavengers below. And on some occasions, those at the table even consume the scavengers that they believe to be nutritious to them. Meanwhile, the scavengers grow thinner and more desperate. What was once a dog-eat-dog existence has descended into a fight among rats. They no longer fight for food. They're eating each other, kept in a state of permanent, controlled malnutrition by the very people they serve. Of course, this is not the tale of a banquet. The great consumers and the scavengers are not merely the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots. They're the two tiers of the UK construction industry. It's an industry that is top-heavy, greedy, and lethargic, governed by giants that have grown too fat to move, supported by a frantic, starving army of scavengers who are forced to feed off the crumbs of a feast that they helped create. And with each new meal, those at the table grow fatter, while the scavengers are forced to eat each other merely to survive. That's what an allegory sounds like, just so you know. Yeah. Not that I was feeling particularly bitter on Saturday afternoon when I wrote that, but hey, there we are. Let's have a look. Yeah, do you know, funnily enough, that's kind of the image I had in mind. For those of you who don't know, that's Monty Python and the Meaning of Life. Mr. Creosote. Just one more slither, monsieur? A wafer thin mint, perhaps? Yeah. Andy says, great minds. Just one little mint, Mr. Chris. See, everyone, you're all tuned in. What has been the best and most memorable free gift that you were given by a manufacturer from all of the ConExpo events? ConExpo. Holy shit! 20 years ago, I was given a pair of sunglasses by Liebherr. And listen, I mean, you may be able to see on my board over there, there's a bunch of sunglasses and some quite nice ones, but these were really, really good. Liebherr gave me a set of sunglasses, as I said, about 20 years ago. They were really good. In terms of free gifts that I've been given generally, not necessarily at ConExpo, but in general, that takes pride of place for me. I reckon that it's a proper Leatherman, but it happens to have a JCB badge on it. That I reckon gets used at least once a day. So yeah, that would be my personal favourite of all of the freebies. Listen, I've had some nice clothing, and my JCB boots are very nice. My Caterpillar boots are very nice. I've got a nice Bobcat jacket. I've got all manner of stuff. But that Leatherman gets daily use, and as I say, the Liebherr sunglasses, it must be. Jesus, it might even be longer than it might even be 25 years ago. It really was that long ago. But it was a pair of sunglasses that it wasn't, I've got a freebie. It was like, oh, wow. How cool are they? Speaking of which, because it is likely to be sunny in Las Vegas, I thought it was time to invest in some new sunglasses. I can no longer see the screen, but how's that? Can you see the redness? When the great consumers in my morning monologue there, those people that have eaten themselves to a standstill. Well, that will be me in Las Vegas. So rather than covering up the bloodshot eyes caused by my excess, I thought I'd go with a pair of these. The only trouble is I can't see a damn thing through them. I'm all right with distance. I'll be able to find Las Vegas. I'll be able to find the various exhibition stands. But if anything needs a reading, it'll be back to these. Put those away. I was given an iPad once. I'm sure it had nothing to do with me being head of training for BP at the time. Yeah, that kind of thing has kind of gone out of fashion in this business, unfortunately. I mean, there were some truly excessive gifts back in the day, but you see some of the ones that they talk about at the Oscars. They get a goodie bag worth 200,000 quid or whatever it might be. Oh, there's a Rolex for you and stuff like that. I did win an Amazon tablet. It's called an Amazon Fire. I won one of those once. It wasn't a gift. It was like a raffle prize that I won. I mean, I've had thousands of pounds worth of gear over the years, but most of it. Now I have this as an outlet. I'll come back here and actually give the stuff away. But back in the day, it used to be quite a big deal. And I kept my dad. My dad always wore baseball caps when he used to go fishing, and he had a fresh one virtually every time we went because I'd been out to a show or been to a manufacturer. Oh, there you go. And when he died, I discovered that he'd kept all of them, and now I had to do something with them. So yeah. Do you still have the original glasses that you used in the first shows? Well, it's a good question. Bear with me. The original yellow ones are here somewhere, but I certainly still have those ones to hand. Do you remember those? Those were, I think these were kind of phase 2 glasses. I did the yellow ones basically to take some of the glare off the screen. They're sort of UV glare resistant. But then when I started to do scripts and stuff, I thought, well, rather than you watching me read a script, I'll do these, and that will cover up the fact that I'm actually reading something. And then after a while, I thought, well, I mean, A, I couldn't see what I was doing, and B, who cares? Who cares from I'm reading it? Second time today, you got out of that seat. I have legs, I know it's hard to believe, but I do exist below the waist. Look, see? Wearing a rather fetching pair of Uniqlo jeans today. Listen, I'm a dedicated follower of fashion. Talking of influencers, how's young Starmer this morning? Yeah, I mean, I've not seen the news this morning, but that whole Mandelson thing, how incredibly naive. Bearing in mind Mandelson's previous track record of being a bit of a sleazebag, did you really think that the leopard was going to change your spots? Because if you did, you're a bigger mug than I thought you were. Yeah, sorry, old state of affairs. And yet, when you think about it, you know, and I do think some of it is down to. I'm not going to describe Peter Mandelson as honourable because I think he's pretty damn far from that. But you know, his links with the Epstein files has been uncovered. He stepped down, been fired, whatever you call it. You know, he's taken you know, he's jacked in being a member of the House of Lords and stuff like that. And yet, the person who is mentioned in the Epstein files the most, still the most powerful man in the world. When our forefathers set forth to Plymouth Rock and took many of our ways and our language to America, apparently they forgot to pack the honour. Left that behind at Plymouth or something. I don't know. Thank God you weren't just in your underwear. Thank God I'm wearing underwear, I would say. That hasn't always been the case. Many is the time I've sat here. No, that's no. I can't even do that with a straight face. I've never done that. I have done it. I've done it in shorts. I've done it in pajama bottoms. Early doors during COVID, I had a pair of pajama bottoms that were used regularly as my lower half covering. But I've since progressed from that. But it has changed my wardrobe somewhat. I've still got a wardrobe full of suits and shirts and ties and stuff like that, but I don't wear those obviously for this. But also, I quite like kind of a slim cut on a pair of jeans or a pair of chinos or whatever it might be. Not now. No, loosey-goosey down below. That's what I'm about. It's not naivety, it's barefaced cheek thinking their shady past, but our present and future will never catch up with them. Yeah, ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? And what I find weird about all of that, it's got nothing to do whatsoever with our morning monologue. What I find strange about that is back in the day, you know, you go back 100 years or whatever it might be, you know, our royal family regularly had mistresses and, you know, illicit affairs, gay, straight, somewhere between the two. Our politicians kept mistresses as well when they were up to no good, but it was away from prying eyes. I'm not condoning it, but it was away from prying eyes. But they were still found out. You think John Profumo and so on down the line. We now live in an age where everything and everybody and every action is tracked with intimate detail. Did our politicians not get the memo that says, you're an MP now, everything you ever do, everything you ever say, everything you ever buy, everything you ever eat, every person you ever meet will be recorded, logged, and will, at some point in the future, be used against you? Apparently they didn't. No, apparently they didn't. Now that the PM's advisor resigned, how long before we have a new PM? I can't remember the guy's name, but was anyone struck by that? The PM's, I can't actually remember what the guy's title was. Yeah, Chief Aide he was. What was he called? Morgan McSweeney. I'll tell you what, let me, rather than talking about it, let me do that. I'll do that. There we are. That's Morgan McSweeney there on the left. The one that isn't Keir Starmer. That's Morgan McSweeney. What is he, about 20? What makes him equipped for this? Weird, right? Let me get rid of that. Gary says, young Lucas Haddock is producing some amazing comment right now. There's a real credit to his father, Peter. They've turned out to be a fantastic team. They have. They absolutely have. In actual fact, I mean this with the greatest respect, because Peter is a mate, but I actually think some of what Lucas is doing is better. It is. I think he's Peter, because he came out of the world of PR, very careful what he says, and very, very enthusiastic. Whereas you get, I get the feeling with some of Lucas's stuff, it's kind of from the heart a bit. He's not looking to please people all the time. He's a thing. Mick Norton says chief acolyte. Yeah, well, ain't that the truth? The government's full of them. Every government's full of them, unfortunately. Does anyone know who won the Super Bowl last night? I've completely missed it. Used to be a big follower of American football. Completely missed it this time around. Not because Bad Bunny was performing. I don't give a toss either way. But I didn't get to see it because I had to be up for you lot. Yeah, see the sacrifices I make for you lot. You don't know. I've done this show through pain and suffering. Not really. I've done it with lack of sleep. I've done that quite a few times, but not much pain and suffering. Anyway, people, should we call it a day? I think we probably should. It is, what is it? It is 11:17. We've been going for an hour and nearly 20 minutes. So it is time to call it a day. I'll be back tomorrow if we get more of the same. If you are part of our group over on Demolition Insider, if you're a paid subscriber there, you'll be receiving something tomorrow about social value. What a con it is. I've put it behind a paid firewall because I don't really want everyone seeing it and reacting to it, because it is going to rattle a few people and ruffle a few feathers, but hey, that's what we're here for. But I will be back tomorrow if you get more of the same. If you'd like to join me, please do. I'll be here at 10 a.m. Until then, everybody, see you very soon. All the best.